My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. It is currently Monday, May 19, 2025. It's 5:23 a.m. This is documentation of the government that is facilitating ongoing and unlawful and inhumane psychological torture pursuant to the system of monitoring, and is doing so while the government is aware of the fact that that inhumane program that it is engaging in through demons and gang stalkers such as Jason Isaac Fields is continuously engaging. I want to be clear, this is the same satanic purpose, it's the same satanic spirit, it's the same satanic agenda with regard to monitoring under all circumstances. The entity is typically targeting in furtherance of murder and kidnapping, where American citizens are subject to surveillance and then they are targeted amongst that population that's engaging in surveillance. And the entity is doing so against the ordinary targeted individual that is unfortunately overwhelmed and succumbs to that inhumane program, which is government conduct. This is what the government is doing, and I am exposing it. And while I'm exposing it, the government is still engaging in it. And that's what I want to make sure is understood with regard to terrorists and sex offenders, very mentally deranged and delusional, mentally ill people such as Jason Isaac Fields. This is a demon-possessed person, and this is 5 o'clock in the morning, and this is somebody that is in the spirit, monitoring. This is somebody that is a stalker. In other words, this is somebody that is stalking in the spirit, whose obsession with me is also exhibited by engaging in that. This is demonic with regard to Christ followers, those who are filled with the Holy Spirit. We are not obsessed with other people. We're not obsessing and stalking them and watching them in the spirit. That has nothing to do with walking with Christ whatsoever. That's the spirit of Satan. And this is what the government is engaging in. And this is something that, again, that the government that is acting and associated with Jason Isaac Fields is engaging in. And this is a basis for recovery. It's not the preceding grounds for what's going to be any sort of cooperation with the government that's monitoring me in furtherance of what is theft of ideas that belong to me. And remember, my ideas are generated from what is terrorism that I'm subject to. So it's very sick and demented what the government is a part of. And I'm going to prosecute the government for it. And this is no act of heroism whatsoever regarding what Jason Isaac Fields. This person's life this person's life is the one who needs to be, he's the one that should be subject to an investigation. He's the one who should be diagnosed with regard to the manifestations of his sickness, of his disorder. What is in many ways, I'm going to let you know. This is a pervert who's monitoring in the spirit, and his mental illness is acted out through sexual activity. And so this is what is the cause of his perverted behaviors, having sex with men and women, having sex with hundreds of them, in doing so with regard to the inability to have a stable relationship. And it's not because he's being targeted by demons like I have been. And by the way, and being targeted, I haven't had sex with hundreds of people. I haven't had sex with men and I have not done any of that. I'm speaking to what is a exact opposite between a demon like Jason Isaac Fields, who happens to be a part of the corrupt government that's monitoring me, and the government is permitting it. The government is facilitating it, and I'm going to prosecute the government for it. There will be no future endeavor. This demon that is a perverted spirit, this is a Jezebel spirit that Jason Isaac Fields is being literally embarrassed by. This is somebody that's going to be prosecuted. Again, if the government ever comes into my presence via Jason Isaac Fields, I'm going to prosecute the government for that. There will be no iteration of justice that's going to include Jason Isaac Fields having anything to do with my personal life. This is somebody that is stolen from me. This is someone that has engaged in sexual activity with my relatives. This is somebody that's engaged in sexual activity with people that were feigning being my friends. There is no normal or actual basis for, again, but a delusional, a demon possessed, that's a mentally ill person such as Jason Isaac Fields is repeating to himself only, but also doing so while he is monitoring me in the spirit. This is a demon. We have nothing in common, and there will be nothing in common. The only thing that in common will be the fact that his name will be at the end of a caption in a case in order to prosecute. This is a stalker and a psychopath and a violent sex offender. This is somebody that's up at 5 o'clock in the morning monitoring me. That is sick behavior. That's nothing that is going to result in anything other than my making sure that every other stalker who is just like Tracy Banks is kept out of my life circumstances, contrary to what he is still doing, what the government is still doing, monitoring. Still monitoring, still stalking. That's exactly what I'm still documenting. Okay, this entity that's documented and that's being documented is the same entity that has stolen evidence to conceal gang stalkers who work for law enforcement agencies, and that government is still monitoring. This is the exposure of government conduct. It's the exposure of what is real, the spiritual realm, and I'm also making sure that mentally ill people, such as Jason Isaac Fields, who literally has multiple personalities, the demon that is hostile to me and is trying to interrupt my peaceful rest, and then switching personalities and then engaging in what is harassing, because under no circumstances am I even, at the very least, nothing remotely close to anything ever happening on a voluntary basis with regard to some sort. This is somebody that is very sick. You're stalking someone, and from that person, myself, is ever going to voluntarily entertain that. This person is sick. Like, I cannot stress that anymore, and that's again why it is for the benefit of the public. Not only is this demon, not only has the government been monitoring, but this is somebody that is still monitoring, and this is government conduct because I'm subject to gang stalking. So what I'm exposing with regard to what the demon possessed are doing in relevant position, I'm also speaking to what the government is doing. You need to understand that we're subject to surveillance in this country. It is demonic. The spiritual realm is also real, and targeting by an entity that's attacking you in ways in which you're not privy to, that you're ignorant about, and how it impacts you, and how the ordinary target individual is suffering in ways in which they cannot define, and then you're lied to about what's wrong with you, quote unquote wrong with you, the entity is engaging in waging this ongoing campaign against me, and all I'm doing is I'm going to expose it, and I'm going to enforce my legal rights against such psychopath. And that is psychopathic, to be up at 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, not sleeping, monitoring me obsessively in the spirit. There will be no future relationship with Jason Isaac Fields. This person has had all manner of, I don't know how tired you are of hearing me repeat the fact that this person has had a prolonged sexual relationship with somebody that can be a grandmother, but that's what Jason Isaac Fields did. This psychopath who acts out his mental illness through his sexual activity, which is disgusting, is nobody that is anyone's husband material. He is only fit to marry somebody that is demon possessed like him, somebody that is serving Satan and has an obsessive demeanor and obsessive behaviors like him. This is somebody that is under no circumstances even on my level. That's why I continuously embarrass him on the public stage, because this stalker is going to be treated and dealt with as the stalker that he is. And I'm going to prosecute the government, because this is the government that's engaging in monitoring me. And while they're monitoring, now they're incapable at what they've learned while they're sitting around obsessively monitoring and stalking me, that they are incapable of causing me I'm not going to succumb to this satanic campaign. And so now they're sitting around monitoring because they're obsessed with what it is that I'm exposing, what it is that they've done and it didn't work. That's equally satanic and sick. It's that same voyeuristic spirit. This is somebody that no one should be sexually involved with. Not only is this a walking, talking, breathing STD risk, but this is literally a mental health case. It is a Dateline murder mystery in wait, literally in the making. He's a national security risk. He is literally, again, these mentally ill, these closeted mentally ill people are walking around without adequate labels. This is a demon that's monitoring in the spirit and refuses to accept the reality that you are disqualified by virtue of literally what scripture says. You don't even know Christ Jesus. That's why you're monitoring in the spirit like a demon. That's why you had rampant sex with every demon that I know by name. That's why you engaged in literally blaspheming the Holy Spirit and defaming my character and what it is that I'm doing, while you were threatening my life, gang stalking, trying to murder and kidnap me, and then having the audacity to steal my intellectual property, my evidence against you. That's why you did all that, because of the demon that you are. You are still monitoring, and I'm going to prosecute the government for that. There will be no future professional endeavors with any demonic entity that is monitoring and associating with this demon. I cannot make that any more clear, but it is a basis for liability. I'm going to prosecute the government for this inhumane program for monitoring upon what is targeting criminal conduct, which is proven with tangible evidence. Jason Isaac Fields is a documented terrorist and a sex offender. And this is evidence further supporting what is going to be federal law in order to bind any documented terrorists from ever coming into contact with me, or you will be subject to nothing other than what is a prompt arrest. Like your information is going to be what is informing security details to make sure stalkers like you never come around me. This is what's wrong with him. This is why you need Christ Jesus. Those of you who are listening, because Satan causes you to be embarrassed. He causes humiliation. He uses you up, and then he laughs at you. This is the entity that is gang stalking at 5 o'clock in the morning. This is a demon that does not ever rest. This person is literally, again, drooling in the spirit, and it's not a compliment. It's despicable. It's disgusting. It's creepy. All right, it is currently, again, it's Monday, May 19, 2025. Jason Isaac Fields is documented with regard to the threat that he poses, where this person ever come in, and this is the state. This person ever comes into contact with me, I'm going to document, I'm going to prosecute. That's it. It is currently 5:34 a.m. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, it is currently 7:26 p.m. This is documentation of the practice of witchcraft as it's going to be relevant in the prosecution of the state that's engaged in gang stalking and doing it in concert with the people of the state who are also the entity together that's engaging in the satanic targeting system of gang stalking. So an engineered light that's framing the front door in the same way that it is this morning. During the 7 a.m. hour, the engineered light is still present, and the entity that is stalking and monitoring, engaging in demonic conduct, witchcraft, stalking in the spirit, monitoring, which is what the gang stalker inside of the unit is doing. She is entering the apartment while this is actually a witch that is spiritually attacking, is engaging in the practice of witchcraft while waking me up and then physically entering the apartment. This is a psychopath. And then molesting with impossible light activity at 7 in the evening. It's 7:27 p.m. when this right now. So this is approximately 7:25 p.m. This is momentarily underway, and so I'm documenting it now. This is that mental illness that's closeted, that's no longer a secret, that's not hidden, or also having actually also nothing to do with well, it has everything to do with regard to the demon-possessed or malicious psychopaths who outwardly conduct themselves as though they're, I guess, a stranger is not capable of gang stalking you as far as the demon-possessed are concerned if they don't look at you, or if they're talking to somebody else. That's what the demon-possessed who lack logic and who lack any actual ability to reason with facts. They deal with illusions, and they create the illusion of, hey, I look like I'm not stalking you, so therefore I'm not, and that is not logic. This is a demon that's engaging in witchcraft, a psychopath that's engaged in stalking in the spirit, relying on witchcraft, interrupting sleep, and then entering the apartment. Remember, I'm wearing headphones and listening to content where I'm asleep, and it's not a coincidence that as I am awoken from sleep, the demon is opening up the front door. So it's not the noise of the door or anything that's waking me up. This is the practice of witchcraft. But this is a psychopath that's gang stalking her own flesh and blood, her own daughter. This is a demon that paces like a psychopath in the middle of the night, and the sound of opening the refrigerator is not that which is waking me up. This is a psychopath, a sex offender, a demon, somebody that practices witchcraft, somebody that worships Satan, somebody that is a Jezebel spirit, mentally ill and a threat to themselves and the public. This is also demonstrated when you're gang stalking your own child, when you are monitoring in the middle of the night, stalking in the spirit, waking me up, and then the sound of opening up the refrigerator is not something also that's going to be amplified in volume. That's the practice of witchcraft as it's exposed. It's very satanic, very, very sick behavior as well. And it's also revealing that sick personality, that sick and demented mind when you are doing so, and then you merely maintain a straight face. That's speaking to a very delusional, very demented, very deranged, very unhinged personality. All right. This is somebody that is in need of mental health assistance, very much so. But that's shared with her co-defendants who are being prosecuted for gang stalking right along with her. And that's the demons at Woodside Senior Apartments. Including LYNDA Reyes, including Daryl J. Carter's problems with regard to gang stalking with residents, gang stalking with employees of the company, gang stalking with the city of Ontario, and doing so with those who are high school graduates who lack self-control, who lack any sort of understanding, particularly with regard to what is a legal strategy in a federal court where you're going to have to be before a judge, you're going to have to be before people, where you're going to have to try to demonstrate that you're anything but the maniacal psychopath that you clearly appear as based on evidence, okay? And the creation of illusions and the use of gossip and also sex rituals are not going to help. All right, it's currently 7:30 p.m. This is the entity engaging in what is the pattern of conduct, and then the psychopath's been waiting all day long to just walk into the apartment so that she can engage in the same sex offense, which is molestation via engineered light. Okay, is merely pacing in through the through the bedroom to the kitchen, just like on May 16, 2025 with the Ontario Police Department, who was gang stalking with her by helicopter when you were looking at that supernatural phenomenon of the fake sun over my head at 10:54 in the morning while the fake sun is remaining over the same apartment on May 16, 2025. Walking in the apartment, this is a demon stalking with light. That's what's happening when you're walking in engineer light inside of the apartment, pacing like a psychopath with the city of Ontario, and then engaging in what is the practice of witchcraft, and then waking me up in my sleep and then physically entering into the apartment. This is gang stalking with the city as well. This is mental illness that's being unveiled while the entity is going to be prosecuted for state terrorism. Psychopaths like this are gang stalking on a daily basis, conspiring murder against American citizens, conspiring theft, engaging in what is criminal defamation, and the likes of such a high school graduate, the likes of such a delusional psychopath, having the nerve to be engaged in defaming anyone, let alone myself, is why mental illness diagnosed and federal gang stalking prosecution, conviction for it, and requiring what is placement in a mental asylum is one of the many results of those that are gang stalking with this defendant. It is currently 7:32 p.m. This is P.O.C. All right, this is again the same terrorist, by the way, that is gang stalking with the city of Ontario, the Ontario Police Department, which is an unlawful threat to my life, safety, and well-being. And the gang stalking that is underway inside of the apartment is a documentation of that. And also the gang stalking with the police department is the ongoing evidence. And this is within a body of evidence, not just what's documented on May 16th, which is plain stalking with police. You go to prison for that. And so whether you are a relative whose name and license plate I know, or a demon who's unemployed at the apartment complex whose name I don't know, and license plate I may have access to, or whether you are an employee whose name I know or name I don't know, license plate or not, or you are a demon-possessed gang stalker coming onto the property, and I document criminal engagement in the elements of monitoring with that police department. Under all circumstances, you're going to federal prison. The entity is gang stalking with the defendant license 9HUZ740, whose criminal monitoring that is documented on video for the world to see within the supernatural, speaking to the malice inherent to gang stalking with the police and being in a familial relationship with the targeted individual. This is somebody that is a witch, practices witchcraft, and is engaged in the specific act of trying to be a hitman while maliciously targeting. And I'm exposing her condition. This is a demon. I'm also exposing her criminal engagement in domestic terrorism, which is what the country needs to know is happening throughout the United States, as the specific environment where this demon is stalking by living in the apartment where the sun remains for, as I documented on May 16th, from 10:54 to 5:40 p.m. That video specifically ends at 5:45 p.m. that I documented on May 16, 2025. And that is, let's see, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. That was 7 hours where Tracy Banks is in video engaging in what is gang stalking her own daughter, and is doing so with impunity while she resorts to witchcraft in order to interrupt my sleep before that psychopath, that pedophile, that gang stalker enters the apartment and then molests my person. Understand the intent, the purpose in seeking to engage in psychological torture such that it's witnessed and experienced. That's also relevant to why Tracy Banks is going to a mental asylum. And her co-defendant, remember, Eric Corey Spencer is on the phone with Tracy Banks when she's gang stalking me on the morning of May 16, 2025, which is on video and punctuated by the Ontario Police flying over my head, where the fake sun is over my head, speaking to the fact that Tracy Banks and Eric Spencer are gang stalking, and so is the Ontario Police Department gang stalking using helicopters. And since you derive pleasure from that, that is understanding the mental illness that's no longer closeted, and surely exposing what is context regarding the nonchalant behavior of a demon-possessed gang stalker. And under no circumstances, when you are aware of all of those facts and aware of all of the details, and then you're getting to the outward demeanor that's supposed to exhibit that you're not a gang stalker when the demon-possessed lack logic, and they are also relying on you just looking at the fact that they're smiling and laughing and on the phone, and ignore the fake sun, ignore the gang stalking police, ignore the entity that's doing so amongst engineer light. You're going to prosecute psychopaths like that and put them in the federal facilities where they belong, and that includes federal prison and mental asylums. Again, that defendant that's gang stalking, engaging in psychological torture, and exhibiting the desire and the ongoing purpose, the resolve to continue engaging in that, that's what is, again, Tracy Banks, license 9HUZ740. This is P.O.C. It's 7:37 p.m. It is currently 9:49 p.m. and with simultaneity to beginning this recording pursuant to, which is demonic. That's the behavioral pattern. The behavioral pattern is relevant to the demonic environment that's maintained. The demonic environment where monitoring is underway by the demon possessed who are gang stalking. The environment engages in that demonic pattern of for example, impossible light activity occurring with simultaneity to your using a communication device, for example, as I am, in order to document that impossible light activity. So the demons that are monitoring are also aware of and are obsessively engaging in what is repeating supernatural conduct, which is going to be used to prosecute them while they are monitoring you, and then they replicate what it is that you are documenting about their monitoring tactics. So what I am specifically referring to is at 9:50 p.m. impossible light activity inside of this demon, Tracy Banks's apartment, who utilizes witchcraft while she's spiritually attacking in order to interrupt my sleep state, then walks into the apartment, which is gang stalking, as she is molesting my body with that which is impossible light that's manifesting in the shade in the dark apartment, in the same way that impossible light activity sits on her walls and ceilings and shoots through the peephole and appears on her living room walls, where my shadow appears upright, multiple shadows along her living room wall. This is a witch, and she's engaged in not only witchcraft, she's engaged in what is gang stalking, which is going to put this person that practices Satanism in a mental asylum. And the apartment that she's remaining in, gang stalking with the government, is where impossible light activity is again occurring at 9:51 p.m. This is blue tinted engineered light. It's not the product of the smoke alarm, which is over the front door of her bedroom, because that would be a red flashing light. It's also, again, not sunlight that's covering her walls, that creates my shadow above my head, that causes my shadow to appear in the dark living room where there's no light that's aiming on my body from the patio glass doors to cause my shadow to appear, which would never create my shadow to appear at a distance away from me upright on the wall. That's never. Neither is the sun on the ground to cause what is light that's shooting necessarily like a laser to cause my shadow to be projected in front of me on the living room wall. That is the demons that are stalking with impossible light, and it is occurring now more frequently that I begin documenting it. This demon, who you know is a demon, she's gang stalking under the fake sun with the Ontario Police Department. Like you can see on video on May 16, 2025, she is gang stalking in her apartment with all the same co-defendants who are going to prison for gang stalking with the City of Ontario by place of residence, which is WOODSIDE Senior Apartments, and their gang stalking is facilitated by the maintenance of this entirely demonic apartment complex where they are under a fake sun, remaining in what is engineered light. And inside of Tracy Banks's apartment at 9:51 p.m., blue colored light is flashing nearest her front door of her bedroom, which is something that would ordinarily be, oh, maybe that's a smoke alarm. I took video of the smoke alarm because the demons were foolish enough to engage in gang stalking, the demonic pattern of stalking with any sort of audible activity. And that stalking conduct is understood as what is monitoring. So you understand what is stalking with light, what is stalking with noise, and what is stalking in the path while you are being monitored in a specific environment that facilitates that. So the entity that used the smoke alarm, which I documented on video, that smoke alarm does not create any blue flashing light. And also that smoke alarm is not blinking like I documented on video. And also, you know that the actual smoke alarm is not even necessarily the cause of what is the sound reminiscent of a smoke alarm when the demons are engaging in demonic methods of nothing other than noise. This is an entirely demonic environment. That is the satanic behavioral pattern is that which is always seeking to engage in what is monitoring tactics that are going to be explained necessarily, especially by a normal person. If you hear dogs barking, you're going to assume that that's a dog somewhere outside of your apartment that or home or wherever you're at that is barking, and that is not the case in the demonic environment. And that is understood when you are aware of what is a sun that sits over one building for 11 hours. Then you're understanding the supernatural character about the entire environment. And the entity is gang stalking with the method of noise. Demons engage in stalk you with noise that's not even naturally occurring. It is supernatural as my shadow upright on the wall, two of them on both sides of Tracy Banks's living room picture. As supernatural as my shadow appearing above my head as opposed to being on the ground when you are aware of the environment and standing underneath the sun, which all of these demons are pacing under, not walking around, driving around, minding their business, just flying in the sky space, going about their business. They're all stalkers and they're all demons who are stalking, and they are readily identified identifiable in that demonic environment. And inside of this demon's apartment, who is engaging in what is spiritually attacking, and she never sleeps, that's the explanation for the gross, wrinkly bags under her eyes. And that's her behavioral pattern when she engages in what is feudalistic and detrimental to herself, acts of retaliation by engaging in witchcraft, interfering with my sleep, and then walking into the apartment in order that I experience her being a sex offender and molesting me with engineered light. And then this psychopath paces in the apartment while she's being documented and she's going to a mental asylum. But that's the gang stalking tactics of a high school graduate that's monitoring with the government that's putting her in prison as well for gang stalking in helicopters. But nonetheless, I just want to be clear, inside of that demon, inside of that sex offender's apartment, is what is blue tinted engineer light that's flashing as though there was something that's above her front door that will create that it's not. And inside of her apartment is filled with engineered light, magnified in size. Now, if you'll recall my documentation in Los Angeles, I documented the maintenance of engineered light that was amber colored. The entity's maintenance of amber color, that specific color is relevant to what is the lollipop lamps that were all over the property at nightfall, even though that amber colored engineered light is impossible light activity, because no light fixtures on the apartment buildings outside is going to cause the pattern of the blinds in my living room to appear above my head, creating my shadow above my head in an amber color. It's not going to cause the shape of the window to appear adjacent to my bedroom window in both of my bedrooms in Los Angeles. And I'm referring to the impossible light activity that was maintained inside of my apartment at nightfall. The shadows that surrounded my person when I walked outside documenting the demons at Alvarado Gardens who were gang stalked with the Los Angeles Police Department in what is the engineered light, while the entity is engaged in what is a documented P.O.C. that's shared with the unemployed and the elderly at Woodside Senior Apartments, who are going to be treated the exact same way. They're violent sex offenders, they're predators, and they're psychopaths who are engaging in the satanic targeting system with pedophiles like Tracy Banks, who engage in stalking with the police in furtherance of her conspiracy, trying to get away with murdering me, plotting to murder me with the people of the state, and thought that she was going to get away with it and profit from it, and then appear on the news with a wet face crying as though she is sad about my demise. That's what this psychopath that's gang stalking plotted to do. It's not happening. And not only am I exposing that, but I'm going to prosecute her for being a mentally ill psychopath. And it is proven by the impossible light activity that's inside of her apartment, by the fake sun that sits over her apartment for 11 hours, by the gang stalking, the terrorism, the harassment, the psychological torture, by the city of Ontario and the gang stalkers, who are the very highly, equally unintelligent people of the state at Woodside Senior Apartments. The entity is maintaining this impossible light at 9:57 p.m. Again, the entity engaging in more of the demonic as you document it. And so the entity is maintaining the flashing of blue tinted engineered light directly above Tracy Banks's door. That's impossible light activity. That's demonic. And that's directly attributed to this demon, Tracy Banks. And so the people that Tracy Banks talks to, including her son, Eric Corey Spencer, license plate JABO, he's a demon. And I want to be clear, you are engaging in what is knowledge that you're communicating with the witch who was targeting me, who was stalking with the police. You're not ignorantly engaging in that. So when I'm documenting the satanic environment that Tracy Banks lives in, where she's gang stalking with the city of Ontario, and she uses her communication devices in this apartment, you're mindful of the demons that she's gang stalking with. That includes Daniel Ackery, that includes Daryl Mandy, that includes Tommy Allen Banks, that includes Eric Spencer, that includes Kyra, that includes the people of the state that she's engaging in gang stalking, which is going to be relevant to the phone records where she's gang stalking me, and those demons are equally focused on me while Tracy Banks is on a communication device, and all of the city of Ontario is maintaining the elements of monitoring while she is engaged in the elements of monitoring inside of this apartment, which the people of the state engage in with her using communication devices. It's Title 18 federal stalking, and as intentional as the maintenance of what is blue tinted flashing engineered light in the middle of the night, which is not coming from outside. The blue tinted light is not coming from outside, in the same way that sunlight not coming from the sun above the building, regardless of the fact that it sits there for 11 hours. It's not coming from above the building. The sun that sits over the building all day long is not the cause of sunlight that's coming from that fake sun at a downward trajectory, and then at a sharp angle, shooting horizontally inside of the apartment from any angle through the peephole, crawling across the ceiling all day long, appearing and disappearing all over the walls, and framing the front door for the duration of the day, including in the dark. It's also at nightfall, not anything that's coming from the light fixtures that are outside. There's no light fixtures that are blinking, and then it's going to cause blue light activity flashing above her front door. But this is the state of the apartment inside where Tracy Banks is monitoring. Okay, this is exposing her demon possession, and it's relevant to her mental illness, which is also relevant to her criminal conduct. The mentally ill are gang stalking. All right. The entity is doing so with knowledge of the fact that their mental illness is being exposed while their criminal activity is also being detailed and itemized. This is the shared mental illness of the police who use helicopters to share in the practice of witchcraft with psychopaths and sex offenders alike, including Tracy Banks and the Ontario Police Department. It is currently 10 p.m. where the demon possessed inside of the building. This is where LYNDA Reyes works, where this impossible light activity is maintained at nightfall. And LYNDA Reyes is going to federal prison. She's fully a part of this maintenance of the specific environment, gang stalking with the government, and in the shoes that she is remaining in while she is working at such a facilitating venue. Remember, the apartment complex is where the entity is also profiting from domestic terrorism. It's where the entity is maintaining the specific environment, and the details regarding all of the elements of monitoring inside of this apartment is relevant to the prosecution of the government. It's relevant to the prosecution of the people of the state who are in the shoes of the government, and demons like LYNDA Reyes are going to be prosecuted because you're understanding what she is fully engaging in with knowledge. You're not ignorant about the maintenance of a specific environment, which is supernatural, which is relevant to the malice. In other words, demons are gang stalking in a way in which no one's ever heard of before, so no one ever suspects it, that it's existing in plain sight. That malice is relevant to the diagnosis and conviction, prosecution for federal group stalking and monitoring. And demons like LYNDA Reyes are going to federal prison for it. It's relevant to the malice engaged in where you are gang stalking by place of residence. And an employee that is gang stalking at an apartment complex, you are going to be prosecuted, and you are always being documented regardless of your work schedule. It is currently 10:01 p.m. where the demons are maintaining impossible light activity at nightfall, and it is under the guise of what is a flashing blue tinted engineered light that's right above the demon possessed gang stalker's bedroom door. Tracy Banks, license 9HUZ740. This is a psychopath that's obsessively monitoring her own daughter, that she has conspired to murder, and that is also relevant evidence for prosecuting her for gang stalking. It is evidence relevant to revealing the malicious purposes and the malicious intent that she has against me and toward me, and I'm also proving that myself while I'm documenting her gang stalking me. It is currently, again, 10:02 p.m. This is P.O.C.